Michel, it's a great pleasure to meet you this morning, and thanks for hosting us. I'm very delighted to interview you today for the book that I'm about to publish, Frugal Innovation, How to Do More with Less. This book features a very detailed case study on Tarkett. I have to confess, I'm very, very impressed by what you're doing in terms of environmental sustainability and using the principles of circular economy to do more with less. So I want to begin with a broader question, which is we are seeing some very big trends changing our sector in coming years. One is the sharing economy, customers looking for a way to share goods and services instead of buying and owning them. The second trend is the circular economy, which is essentially different from the linear process of making and disposing of products. The third trend is the maker movement, where we see everyday citizens starting to create their own products instead of buying them in own stores. Among these three trends, which ones are most relevant for you, and which one will radically change your business model in coming years?
Well, clearly the second one, the circular economy, has been a great driver for change for the company and probably leading the industry on this matter. It doesn't mean that we are not co-creating, especially on design side, our products, involving architects, designers to help us come up with the best designs that are fashionable, liked by our customers. It doesn't mean that we are not also interested in sharing products or leasing products rather than selling products, so people pay for use and not for owning the products. So, but these are quite marginal. The main driver for us has been really the fact that we see our economy becoming more and more circular. First of all, it started within the Tarkett ecosystem, and then it has been progressively expanded to other companies, suppliers or customers, and it's becoming a wider and wider concept.
Interesting. So you basically said that you are trying to reinvent every aspect of the value chain, from design to production, and it goes all the way to the end of life cycle of products as well.
Absolutely, but we don't say end of life anymore. We say end of use.
Yes.
For us, it's a never-ending story, because
Right.
the what is today sometimes a raw material for us is an end of life material for another company.
Exactly.
And vice versa. What becomes an end of life material for us can become a raw material for another starting company.
So what is waste for one company becomes the raw material for another company.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We try to replicate nature. I mean, basically, where resources always come and go in cycles, in biological cycles. In our case, it's more technical.
So, Michel, you saw some of the principles that we discussed earlier about frugal innovation. There are 6 of them, of course. Which ones among these principles resonate with you, and are there any of the 6 principles you're already implementing in your company? Can you talk about that?
Well, the circular economy principle is clearly the one that has been a main driver for us, and will continue to be in the next future, in the coming future. There is a kind of very open field. As I said, it all started within the company, but when you start linking companies together that at the beginning have nothing to do with each other, the level of possibilities is just phenomenal. Let me give you one example or two. In Brazil, for example, we found out that a pharmaceutical company that is making blisters, PVC blisters, had some scrap at the end of their production line, and those scraps were going to the landfill. Now we've partnered with them, and now we buy their scrap for a very small amount of money, and we use this scrap after, of course, a small modification, small transformation in our factory. We use this scrap as a raw material for making floors. So what was a scrap for one company, ending up in a landfill, becomes a raw material for us. And by the way, one of our goals by 2020 is to have 0 industrial waste from Tarkett going to a landfill. Another example is the windshields of the cars. When the cars are destroyed, there is a PVB film between the 2 glasses, which when you separate, people don't know what to do with it. And we take back this film, we transform it, and it also becomes a new raw material for making a backing for our carpet tiles in the US. So what again was something which would have ended up in a landfill has become now a raw material for us. So this is really for us the main possibility we see in the future of growing the business in a sustainable way.
So it's really not about recycling or reusing within your value chain, but you're beginning to connect with other companies' value chains as well. And that's one of the principles in the books about they call about making innovative friends, which is about looking at innovation not only within your ecosystem but linking up with other companies. How easy has it been to do that? Because most companies have difficulty collaborating with their own suppliers, upstream, downstreams. But how have you managed to connect with these other companies and basically begin to collaborate across companies or industries?
Well, I think the first thing was for the teams to really be aware of what was possible by looking outside. Mm-hmm. I mean, looking at things differently was the starting point. And then when you start saying, okay, well, who else is using this material in the world, even if it's an industry which is not at all connected to our industry, then you start engaging in dialogue. And sometimes, because people find benefits on both sides, you end up making a deal. So that's really the way it has happened.